Rebel with a Cause. I am Carl. I'm an addict alcoholic, and among other things, in my sobriety date is August 22nd, 2014.
You sounded very unsure about that. See, I'm an alcoholic.
Because I wasn't sure like how to start
I know, I'm
again.
just
I'm always go ahead. You are.
kidding. I think I'm Lindsay. I'm an alcoholic, and my sobriety date is September 6th, 2015.
This is SoberPod.
Soberpod.com. Yeah, SoberPod, keep it authentic, no facades. If it's real, then you know it's ours. Welcome.
SoberPod is a podcast dedicated to the idea that one addict or alcoholic helping another is crucial to building a life in recovery. Join us this season as we read from our books, 366 Effing Days Sober and Spirit Vigilante. And as always, stay active, stay sober. Oh, by the way, you can pick up Lindsey's book at thespiritvigilante.com and the 366 Effing Days Sober book at soberpod.com. Those are the best places to go and see the many other things that we are doing in our lives at those locations as well. Lindsey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great too. Maybe we should
Yeah.
maybe just this whole recovery thing, we should just be done with it from this point. I always feel like we need to have some kind of problem, right? Like it always needs to be a struggle. Yeah.
Sure, we'll explore some within this conversation.
So we're talking about Rebel with a Cause. Why are we talking about Rebel with a Cause?
Because I think I was really attached to this identity of being this rebel, this
Badass.
badass, just like smoking the cigarettes, listening to the sad music, like didn't like holidays because everyone else did, and just kind of challenging everything because I didn't want to be, in my mind, a dope like everyone else. And now I still consider myself a rebel, but a rebel with a cause, because I still there's some things that I kind of go against the grain on, but it's very intentional now. It's not just for the sake of being a badass. If that makes sense.
It does make sense. I was always a rebel myself, but
Yeah.
I don't. The worst part is that I never wanted to be. Isn't it strange? Like I just assumed the role because I think that that's the only thing that I knew. So
Yeah.
I always wanted to be different, but I always felt like I was different. It's really weird how that works out, right? Yeah. So
Yeah, there's so many paradoxes, because at the same time as I'm saying that, as I was growing up, I was anything but the rebel. Like I did everything I was supposed to do. I was really good in school, but when I started drinking, then that's when it became. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was still a perfectionist in so many other parts of my life, but internally I was just doomed. Like the black sheep of the family, and no one knows how bad I have it, and that's why I have to be so bad to the bone.
That's why I drink the way that I do, right?
That's why I drink the way that I do.
I was always the scapegoat. I was always the black sheep. I was always the if there was a fart in the room, I would call it out. Right? You know what I mean? Like I was like, I didn't, nothing got by me. Nothing was, you know what I mean? And what I really loved about, and this is what I still do this a lot, which is kind of the problem that I have. So again, when you identify as the baddie or the badass or the scapegoat or the black sheep, which I think most of us do on some level, because, you learn to play the role that you're given.
Definitely.
I was trying to convey it the other day. Actually, wait, before I go off to that that tangent. But yeah, I loved playing, like I loved blowing stuff up.
Mm.
I loved the. I mean, I'm talking about being like I was like there's an agent for change and then there's the chaos agent. Like I'm the chaos agent, right?
Yeah.
And I loved like causing trouble and blowing shit up because to me that was my only form of control, you know? And if I could make you cry or if I could make you scream or if I could make, I had some impact or effect on you. I had some level of control. It may not have always been the control that I wanted or that I really
Right.
desired, but it was the way in which I could affect control, right? So,
And power
yeah,
probably too, right?
my only power came in chaos. So being the
Yep.
baddie became my identity. Being the badass became like, something that I used and utilized in order to operate in the world. At least at the very least, I felt like I knew my place. You know what I mean? And because every time I tried to be good, I was shut down, criticized, turned
Yeah.
away, held back, whatever it was. Didn't matter what it was. If I expressed felt like, I don't know, it felt like anytime I expressed any interest in doing anything that seemed to be positive, somebody would always like have a comment about it or somebody would jeer.
Mhm.
Dude,
Mhm.
even when I was a little kid, I'm going to get vulnerable. Are you ready? Oh
I
my
love
God.
it.
No, this is like really vulnerable.
Do it.
This is like people are going to post memes about this stuff now.
Oh,
Okay.
I hope so.
When I was a very little kid, 1978, right? I was this is so terrible. We went to watch Grease the movie, right? And in Grease the movie, like Danny was trying to become like a good guy for a little while in that
Yes.
movie, and he ran around track trying to get Sandy back or whatever, and he was running around track, but he got Sandy back, right? So he got the acceptance from Sandy while he was running track, right? And because she comes running after him after he falls, and
Yep.
so when I was a kid in 1978, I set up milk crates around my backyard and I ran around like milk crates trying to be like
Oh,
trying to be like I thought that might make me good on some level. I even joined like the sprinting team like in my running.
no.
Yeah, I did all that stuff. I was
It's the sweetest
I
thing
know, like that little
ever.
boy, he just trying to get
Little
love. So and then what
Carl.
happened though is that you know it, I wasn't successful. I was, you know what I mean. Like when I was 8 years old, and neighbors down the street or on the corner, it was an older teenager. He thought it'd be funny if he gave me a joint while I went to school. I was 8 years old, and like this 16-year-old handed me a joint,
Jeez.
sending me to school. So so yeah, things changed. Was But how vulnerable is that? Like that little boy just running,
Oh,
just trying to
breaks my
improve, right?
heart. Oh, little Carl. I want to give little Carl a
I'm
hug.
so confused. Oh, Sandy. Oh, Sandy. I just want to run around the
I
track for you,
know.
Sandy. Oh, Sandy. Stranded at the drive-in. Brandon.
I need to watch it again. I love it. Everything you're explaining, I know
Right?
word for word.
Exactly, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, I was just thinking about Greece the other day because I was having a girls' night with my friends and we were joking about like the sleepover scene in Greece and how they're all actually the age we are now, but they were pretending to be in high school.
Yeah.
And I was like, what was the moral of that story? Like, be bad?
I don't know. I don't know. They were just,
Because Sandy becomes bad at the end and then everyone's happy
yeah. Sandy
because
starts.
they're both bad.
She's smoking
She
and
smokes a cigarette.
drinking.
Yeah.
Man, she's got it
Yes,
going
so I'm
on.
like, hold on.
I think.
Not that there has to be a moral. That was like top 10 of my favorite movies ever.
Yeah,
But
but still, I think our pictures and idols of the 70s were a
exactly.
little bit different
Correct.
than they are today.
Correct.
So I guess,
Yes.
being the baddie to me was like normal. Like that was like, and that was just the way to be. And then it became like real baddie. You know what I mean? Like you're like, well, what I felt to be real baddie. So what about you? How did you transition in and out of baddiness?
Yeah, I think what you said, like once that kind of becomes your identity or your mental model of yourself, you feel at least I'm attached to something, because that was my problem, was that I felt so lost. Like when I graduated college, that's when things got really confusing for me, because I like entered the workforce, but I felt purposeless. And so I just drank all the time. And so once that became my kind of persona, I just went with it. And I didn't care when people talk about hiding drinking and that. I never hid my drinking. My whole thing was like, I do whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it.
'Cause I'm a
And if you
baddie.
have, because I'm like Sandy from Greece.
Tell me about it, stud.
Oh my God, can we just weave in one-liners from
Yeah,
Greece
there you go.
for this? I'm so hopelessly devoted, Carl, to my alcohol.
To my alcoholism.
So
Yeah.
anyway, pivot. Okay. So yeah, so that was my thing. If you have a problem with it, there's the door. Unless you were like the guy I was keep holding hostage who wasn't allowed to break up with me, and I would just beg for one more chance. But that was a different story. So yeah, I mean, I that was just who I became. It wasn't really a conscious thing, I don't think. But I just like,
Yeah,
I'm gonna, yeah.
none of it was ever conscious for me either. My only, even when I was trying to jump the crates in my backyard, it wasn't because I like understood myself to be bad or
Right.
anything. I just wanted to be good. You know what I mean? I just
You
knew.
wanted to be accepted.
Yeah, exactly. I just wanted Sandy to run out on the track and tell me that she
Yeah.
loves me and that and I could be a good dancer someday. You know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is all stemming from the reading. So funny so if you woke up today and you read the book 366 effing days sober, you may have read May 5th, which by the way I'm editing to. So if you notice, like
He's red penning
I'm red
it.
penning it
It's
to take out
adorable.
the F words. So if you woke up today and read May 5th, you would have read this. Are you ready, Lindsay?
I'm ready.
May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. I remember the day so vividly, early in recovery. I was walking down the sidewalk with my 1-year-old daughter. The sky was so blue and vivid, the grass so green and rich with life. A real estate agent had posted flags on every lawn for a national holiday, and I forget which one. I think it could have been Memorial, who knows. And my daughter was walking along and snatching up every single one of them. As we walked along, I had this feeling of goodness wash over me. It was like I had been washed of all the dirt and grime that drinking and living a life of misery had built up over the years. I felt freer than I had ever felt before. I can't explain it, but I knew I crossed over and joined the good team. I was no longer a baddie playing for the bad team, no longer that hateful, resentful person. I found a spark of joy that seemed to lighten my load, a spring in my step. I took a picture of my little girl as my little girl stumbled down the sidewalk with multiple flags in each hand. This day I started to play the game differently. Reflections. Have you joined the good team, quote unquote? Are you still playing for the baddies, quote unquote? What is motivating you today? Daily challenge. Retrace your day yesterday. What little moment sticks out? Where could you have been better? And then you have something from your book as well, do you not?
I do. I just wanted to say one thing that sparked me when you talked about freedom, because I thought when I was being a baddie, as we keep saying, I don't think I've ever used that word in my life until this podcast, but I love it that you're calling it that. So I'm going to say,
I don't know what else to call it. I could say an asshole, a jerk, whatever.
because
Yeah, he's
now
a
like
baddie.
young people say it online a lot.
Oh, do they?
Like it's I think it's a Gen Z thing, like, oh, baddie.
It's because
Like,
I'm so
I don't know,
young.
as term as endearment. Yeah. Maybe your daughters say it or something.
Maybe.
But anyway, when you said freedom, I thought that that the rebelness was freedom. Like I remember being in a work training, and I worked for the government, so everyone's pretty straight laced, and we all went around the room and talked about, like, we had to choose a word that was most important to us, and I went last, and everyone was talking about their kids and love and family and all their hobbies revolved around their kids and this and that. And at the end, I was so freaking arrogant. I was probably in my
He's
mid-20s.
like, prosecution. No.
Oh, just so arrogant. I was like, because I'm single, you know, this and that. And I'm like, my word is freedom, because I never want to be tied down to like any of the things that were just mentioned.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, you suckers.
Yeah. I just felt like you guys are so like weak, just buying into this whole system of love and happiness. And, you know, I'm the luckiest person in this room because I have freedom and I do whatever I want, whenever I want. And that was not freedom.
Lindsey just alienating herself and her coworkers. Like, they're like,
such,
you know,
I was,
you know how many people went home and prayed for you?
I hope so.
I just say it. I think that's hilarious.
Yeah. So anyway, it's interesting that our idea of freedom changes, right? I think I'm actually going to read, because people always get confused by my moniker, if you will, of spirit vigilante.
How do they get confused?
And we're talking about, why do they get confused? Because they think vigilante connotes darkness and like evil.
Oh, okay. They don't see it as an empowering ownership.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Like I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, does that mean you're trying to get revenge?" Or
yes, God is on my side, and you will all die.
Yeah, like I think they pictured Jodie Foster right at night trying. I think she was in a movie called Vigilante, like trying to avenge somebody, and people taking the law into their own hands, right? Yeah. And so, in a way, I am still. There is still this darkness in me and this rebel, but I'm going to define the word vigilante and what it means to me and why it is the title of my book.
Gotcha.
So the word vigilante itself is borrowed from the Spanish word of the same spelling that means watchman or guard, traced back to the word vigilare, which means to keep awake. So if you think of like vigil and holding vigil, keeping your eyes open. So as spirit vigilantes, we guard our souls. We are alert and aware. We are dedicated to protecting ourselves as we expand our energy, even if society at large may not understand or agree with our actions. Spiritual wellness is an individual and personal endeavor. Vigilantes often work quietly behind the scenes, but make no mistake, we are putting in the sweat and tears. Join our movement as you embark on a transformational... Such a better writer than speaker. Just read my book. Join our movement as you embark on a transformational journey to uncover your hidden gifts, reclaim your power, and change your world. You are the architect of your own healing, and we are here to support you every step of the way, cheering you on as you begin to recognize and implement your soul's brilliance. You have the power to transform into your full potential and become the main character of your life. Trust your truth, claim justice for your soul. So in a way, I still have the freedom in that I'm not doing what everyone else is doing just because they're doing it, but I understand now why, right? So I did choose not to have kids, but it's not in the same way that I thought I was choosing it before. I now can make decisions based on who I am as I know myself today, when before I had no idea and I was just going against the grain to go against the grain. So that's what the difference is for me today.
That you make the choices based off who you know yourself to be, and they're very much more awareness-based choices, right? You know, it's like
correct.
Yeah, I feel like it got thrusted on me because I don't think that I ever really made the decision. I think it's funny because I'm working with this dude and we're going through the step work and I'm trying to like explain it the best that I can. Is that like it's not something, the steps are not something I do, it's something that actually happened to me, right? So that's kind of the weird part about it, is like I just went along for the ride thinking I was just going to go along for the ride, and then when I changed, it was kind of shocking, right? And so but let me just say, that's where I actually got the awareness, right? Is I was like,
Mhm.
oh, it's like I didn't realize that I was getting to know myself. Um, I just thought that I was like, I really just thought that the step work was there to keep me busy so that I could, what I mean?
You need to give these alcoholics something to do with
Yeah,
their hands.
yeah, just give them something to do rather than just drink. And yeah, I ended up, like I said, joining the good team, and I didn't realize that it had happened because I had no intentions, by the way, no intention of being a good guy, none, no intention of being the nice dude,
Same,
no, not at all.
same.
Yeah, and so,
So when I say I made these decisions, obviously I didn't. This is all after surrendering
mhm.
and listening to what my mission is to do. So when you say you felt like it was happening to you, that's how I feel. Like what I manifested or whatever was manifesting me at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So it's not, I don't say that one day I woke up, and you know this because you read my book and we talk every week, but I didn't one day wake up and be like, I'm going to be a vigilante for the right reasons
yeah, yeah,
now.
yeah,
Look at me. God, it was a surrendering
yeah.
and someone else having a better plan for me.
At no time did I ever sit down and decide this is what Carl was going to do. Yeah.
No.
So crazy, right? It's like, because I think a lot of people, when they get into recovery, they kind of like, they, some people anyway, continue to quote unquote wrest satisfaction out of their
Mm.
lives, or
Mhm.
try to
Mhm.
anyway. So they still try to control it. They still try to like do things, and they're operating from a whole different perspective, right? You know, and I think that's what the beauty of what I did anyway was, is that it was a surprise to me about the results.
Yes.
So when
Yes.
I write that, like on that May 5th,
Yes.
I was like, it hit me in that moment, like, wow, like things are like, when you're a baddie, you don't look up a lot. You don't look like, I mean,
No.
metaphorically and literally, like you don't look up a lot. And it's like, so when you're drinking and drugging, you're just, man, your head is just, you pointed down, you're looking at your feet, you're looking at the ground. You never really like, you physically, like, this is the kind of who
You're
we are.
looking at
Yeah.
other people and what they think about you because you care so
Yeah.
much.
And then the day that it happens, it's like, it's like, people talk about like the pink cloud, that kind of stuff. And I was, this is literally like a definition moment of like the pink cloud. Like I literally looked up and I'm like, wow, the sky is so blue. Oh my gosh, there's trees.
Yeah.
Like
No.
it,
Same.
there's
Exactly.
flowers everywhere. How did that happen? When did that happen? Like when, like, you know
No.
what I mean? When did the world suddenly change? You know what I mean?
I know exactly. It was
Yeah.
like Wizard of Oz,
Yeah.
like Technicolor.
Isn't it just strange? It goes from black
It's
and
so
white to
strange.
color, and you feel it in the moment, and
It's
it's
unreal.
shocking, right? And I don't think so. I think that has a lot to do, again, with perspective in your mind, your awareness, and paying attention, and of course, let's not forget getting sober and remaining sober for a period, enough period of time to see the difference, right? Because you can have a good day, but it's never really lasting when you're drinking and using,
Hmm.
you know.
Hmm.
But then when you get sober, you can have a good day. You can even have 3, 4 days in a row. Suddenly you're having a whole week of that's been great, and the world seems to have completely changed.
And
Like,
you're like, I wonder if that has anything to do. No, can't
it
be.
can't be, right? But to be able to acknowledge it, see it, be completely aware of it, take a picture of it, and write it down in a book just seems kind of, amazing to me. You know what I mean? Like that. I mean, and we've both done the same in similar ways, right? Like we both
Right.
acknowledged,
Which
like,
is really
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's trying to, as far as this reading was going, it was like trying to say that it's okay to people to join the good team, right? Yeah,
Did you struggle with that?
yeah.
Did you feel yourself becoming good and like have this moment of no, I'm bad. I don't,
What
I'm
do I
not on
do
this
with
side.
it? Like, how do
What do I do
how
with
am I
it?
going to
Yeah,
do
yeah.
this
Tell
moving
me about,
forward? How am I going to,
yeah,
oh,
tell me about
oh
that
my God, I'm glad you
experience.
asked because it's terrible. It's the worst. No, it really is. I hate it. I hate everything
I
about it.
agree.
I hate not being able to like consider punching somebody in the face for them being a
I
fool.
hate everything.
I cannot stand that I'm literally quiet at times when in the past I would have just totally blurted out something so
I
inappropriate and shocking that would have
know.
just totally ruined the room. Like I
Dude.
loved that stuff. But you know what? I also love being quiet now. The difference is like so instead of blurting something out and ruining the room, I love watching the whole room play out, right? And
Yeah.
not being the person to impact or affect it. And also, I get to walk out of that room and not be the asshole, right? Like, wow, like how cool is that? Like, I got to walk out of that room and people were like, oh, I really like Carl's adulting, or whatever that is, right? But yeah,
Yeah, kind of. And that's the vigilante part, right? Like that's the observer. Doesn't mean you're not doing anything
yeah,
behind the scenes,
yeah.
but you're able to be watchful and mindful.
But yeah, on basic levels, like everyday levels, that's kind of what that's like. But then the other thing is like I did really lose my purpose. And because I saw myself as kind of a baddie creative, and that like I
Right, right,
can
right, right.
impact and
Like drunk
affect things. Yeah,
artist.
kind of.
Yeah.
That's what my persona kind of was, and I always brought I brought like good madness to the room sometimes, like a good
Yes, yes, yes,
chaos or
yes.
whatever. Um, and then so I did kind of lose my. I felt like that was my uh slice of life, right? Like that's what I brought to a table that made me more interesting and more engaging and involving and interesting and all these other things. I really thought that that's what made me who I was. So
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
in recovery sense, have you ever heard like the hole in the donut kind of a thing? Have you ever heard that? Like the theory of like the
Yeah,
hole in
you
the donut?
don't want to be the hole in the donut,
Well,
right?
because like people think like if I'm no longer these things, if I'm no longer the
Yeah.
baddie, the da, 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 well then
What?
if you take away all this shit that I think that I am, I'll there'll be nothing left. I'll be literally the hole in the donut. There won't be anything left of me in there because everything is not desirable, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I felt. And then the other thing, the same reason, it's probably the same reason why we were talking like in the last episode about cussing, right? A big part
Yeah.
about why I
Yeah.
hold on to cussing is because I'm like I think that that somehow defines me,
Oh, that's so
and I think that
interesting.
that somehow is the
Yeah.
thing that like I hold on to as part of my baddiness. That like
Uh-huh.
you know what I mean? Because if
Uh-huh.
I don't cuss, then I won't be interesting otherwise, right? Or
Yeah.
whatever.
I've
So,
held on to skulls. That's my, like, I love
do you have
skulls. Like
tattoos of skulls? Do you have tattoos? Do you have any?
uh, no, I don't have
Oh,
tattoos of skulls
interesting.
yet, but I will. Like I
But
love
I will.
skulls.
I love that you're like, but I will have tattoos of skulls at
Oh,
some
I
point.
will. I have so many plans. I've definitely texted my tattoo artists different skull variations. So I'll keep you posted. But no, as of yet I don't. But I struggled with that same thing. And I had to surrender to that, weirdly enough. I had to surrender to being good and being like, it's okay to be happy, which is weird. That's a hard thing for
Mm.
me to accept, like, wait, it's okay to feel good today.
And not
When is the
to,
bad gonna
yeah,
come back?
and
Yeah.
not to confuse peace with boredom. That was always hard for me too. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I was such a producer of chaos, as
Yeah.
we are, and was like, hold on, nothing's happening here, And if nothing's happening here, then who am I? And yeah, yeah, it's weird to allow ourselves. Someone said once, it's okay to be okay.
Mm.
And I'm like, no, it's not. That just wasn't my reality.
I do know. Yeah, it was my whole identity. So when I did get sober, I had to really look at establishing what that meant. There's a guy that I just went to go visit actually in Texas. Uncle Mullet, Scott Hardy. If you guys want to look him up. I was like 2 years sober when I started watching him. He's this do-gooder dude, right? And he does all these like, things. I actually write about him in the book. At one point, I say something along the lines of like, maybe today you can hand out flowers in downtown Austin, right, or whatever. So this is what he does. He like does crazy shit like that. He hands out flowers in downtown Austin, puts it on a GoPro. He's a dude that runs around. He does like this hero program where he helps people stranded on the road and on the highway, and he like. If they have flat tires or run out of gas or whatever, they call on these hero programs so people can be. It's like talk about spirit vigilantes, right? Like this dude, literally,
Right,
I should probably get him
right.
on this thing.
I love that.
I wrote him a letter, right, and he read it on his YouTube channel at one point. This is like 7-8 years ago, and I wrote him a letter because I was like, I told him I want to be like you when I grow up, right? Because like you're such a helping in heart-centric and just like he's just exuding positivity, and I'm sitting there like just getting, again, I'm 2 years sober, and I'm looking to redefine myself, and I'm like, how do you do that, and what do you do? So when I would sit there and watch this dude, and I was just like, sometimes he just make me cry, and I would just be like, how is he so loving? How does he have that much to give? You know what I mean? And so I went to visit him actually just in Texas, like a couple months ago. And because it's almost like I just needed to go there. And so we talked for about 4 hours over brunch or whatever.
Wow.
And then we were just talking the other day for like an hour, just shooting the shit just on the phone. And I'll tell you, it was so, in his video response to me, he was like, he talked about how we have to go through a lot of hard times in this world. We go through a lot of, strain, and we go through a lot of, but it's the people who really come out on the other side, who turn around and help somebody else. Right. Those are like, it's kind of like, it's what we should all be doing on some level. And that's kind of what it was for me, is I was like, well, so how do I redefine myself and go to the good team? And then what do I do now that I'm on the good team? Right. And so I looked around me for people that were doing good, and this was one of those dudes, and I was like, oh, that's it. So he's probably part of the reason why I created this podcast, right? Because I was like,
that's powerful.
Because I saw him extending himself out there, and I needed to emulate that kind of behavior, and that's basically where we are, right? It's like talking to people on the internet.
I know sometimes the things that I say, if I'm teaching yoga or doing a goddess gathering, or all of these things that I do, some things that come out of my mouth, I'm like, come on. meaning I could be making fun of somebody who is like this, And I was wondering if there's any part of you, when you were exposed to this guy and learning about him, was any part of you like, come on, man?
Or you mean like, oh yeah, it's just too cheesy?
It's just too much.
Yeah.
Or did you like fully look up to him, and that was the first time you actually respected and wanted what that person had?
What I really enjoyed about him is that he did things without people's care. Right.
Okay.
And I needed to do that
he earned your respect.
Because even though it was cheesy at times, and even though it was ridiculous, and even though it's like, I was like, come on, dude, like whatever. Right. Yeah. There's those moments. Don't get me wrong. I was like, there's stuff that I would look at and go, I would never fucking do that. But the fact is like, I wanted to, you know what I mean? And like that my inner heart wanted to communicate in a way that like was not, it just seemed impossible. I couldn't do that without caring about what other people thought about me and how I lived. And you know what I mean? The open yourself up for people, people putting your head on John Travolta's body, running around the backyard, jumping milk crates, that kind of a thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, you know what? I don't really care today. I'm gonna go right ahead, do it. I'll be more than happy to watch that, because that's who I am. That's the reality of it today. But back then, I couldn't have, you know what I mean? It took another 2 years before I could even begin to like. It took another year to start writing a blog after that, and it took another
Mhm.
year to actually like becoming okay to even share my ideas relating to how I really
Yeah.
felt, you know?
I kind of
So,
had a long process like that too.
yeah.
There's in our book that we so frequently quote from that is Big and Blue.
Yeah.
There's a quote that I love, and it says, "The only real freedom a man can ever know is doing what he ought to do because he wants to do it."
Hmm.
And I remember the first time I wanted to do something good. I mean, I don't remember what it was, but I remember
The
being like,
feeling.
this is
Yeah.
weird. Like I'm doing something nice and I actually want to, not because somebody's telling me to,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? And it's interesting what you said about like coming out on the other side of doing this work and like how everyone should do this. Because once you go through something like this and know who you are, it's like, watch out, world. Because we develop this kind of imperviousness
Hmm.
to things that we once. And I was reading one of my favorite essays from Emerson last night, and I just want to share
Oh,
something I
just
wrote
fucking
down.
name dropping on the Emerson. Oh, by the way, everybody, last night I was
It's
reading
weird.
Emerson.
It's weird. I know that's like that's the kind of stuff I say that I want to slap myself, but I really have this
I just
weird
play
thing
it.
with
You know that,
Emerson.
right? Like,
I know, but I would be upset if you didn't
I have, it's funny
because
because I've also read Emerson. And I just want to say this, but I would probably never tell people that I've read Emerson. But
shit.
like,
Okay, well,
that's what
I
I
read
read
this
all
quote on
during COVID. By the way, I read a lot of Emerson during COVID. Just FYI.
I read this quote on Instagram then is what I'll say instead of
Oh,
Emerson.
there you go.
Okay. And I literally wrote it down in my journal because I was so impressed with it. Uh, Every man in his lifetime needs to think his faults, as no man thoroughly understands a truth until he has contended against it. So no man has a thorough acquaintance with the hindrances or talents of men until he has suffered from the one and seen the triumph of the others over his own want of the same. So you know how he talks, but he has a defective temper that unfits him to live in society. Thereby he is driven to entertain himself alone and acquire habits of self-help, and thus like a wounded oyster he mends his shell with pearl. Come on.
Come on. I'll tell you what. SoberPod has really grown up. So that now, since you've come on, Lindsay, because we're sitting here
Oh.
reading Emerson. Just you're trying to get me to
Wait,
cuss less and read Emerson. I don't know if I
was
like
it
the way
relevant?
where this is going.
Was it relevant? Was
No,
it
it's totally
relevant?
relevant.
Can
That's
you not
completely
say
relevant.
that we had a defective temper that deemed us unfit to live in society?
Yeah.
And so we were driven to entertain ourselves alone and acquire habits. He says self-help.
Yeah,
He says
yeah,
the word
yeah.
self-help. And like a wounded oyster, he mends his shell with pearl. Like, I couldn't relate to anything more.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's like I read about it in the book too. I talk about kitsugi. You know what kitsugi is?
No.
Kitsugi is an art in Japan where they take like a bowl, and usually the bowl is like something that has like broken. It's kind of like a family heirloom, right? It could,
Oh, the gold.
yeah. And then they mend it together with gold. So that's the idea behind that kind of stuff. It's like, so not only do you like take this brokenness, you take this like idea of this thing that's so quote unquote so ugly, yourself, your defects, your whatever, your nature, and then after you review it, meaning after you review the brokenness of it, you mend it back together and you make it more beautiful than it was
Yeah.
before, and stronger and more valuable than it was before.
And
So
what's that called?
kitsugi.
Kitsugi. And that's less pretentious to reference than Emerson. Just to be clear.
No, it's just as pretentious, but
Okay.
but
Because I didn't know the term for it. I was like the gold in the cracks thing.
the gold in the cracks. Not to be confused. Never mind. So in it's funny because you talk about it. It is like, once you understand yourself and you know yourself better, you kind of like you turn into a different version of yourself, and the big book actually talks about it is it says, that stupid book that we keep quoting. It says that we suspect we've we've tapped an unsuspected inner resource. That's exactly what it says, right? And then suddenly we're like, we have more energy and we have more direction and we have more purpose, and suddenly suddenly joining the goodies, suddenly not being on the baddies and joining the good team seems to be like preferable, because now we understand the difference. We're like, oh my gosh, before it seemed like we were just hauling like cement, shoes or whatever, and now suddenly we're like we're moving, like we're and I was and I said this, I don't know what it was, not too long ago, but I remember I was in this writers group and this woman called me prolific, and I had to go look up what prolific was because I didn't know the definition. And I was just like, prolific. I thought, oh, like a really good writer. No, not like a really good writer. Prolific meaning you produce a lot creatively, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't understand that. Oh my gosh, like nobody had ever called me that my entire life, right? Because it looks different when you what before it just looked like I was struggling to produce things. Now I was kind of effortlessly producing things, and
it's so different.
It is a very different. So because once you free yourself to know more about yourself, to be aware of what you're going on, and then to help define yourself better, meaning like I'm looking at that Uncle Mullet guy and I am like, oh, how's he doing it? What's he doing? And I'm like, ooh, I want to be like that, right? So now I have a direction. Now I have like a more vivid path to where the way I want to make other people feel, right? And I'm like, okay, so then this is a new path. And it's exciting, right? But when was the last time you were drunk or on drugs where you did anything like that or felt anything near that? Is there any time like that for yourself?
Zero.
Like, I don't know when I was like, I ever felt like I was going to be like, you know what I mean? Like, there's never a time in my life in the 42 years up to the point I got sober, I have never felt like that ever.
Never.
So,
Never.
I suppose it could happen for some people, maybe, right? If they got really lucky,
I probably felt like that when I was younger because I was very creative, like before the alcoholism and stuff, because I loved writing and I love this. You can just laugh now, but I loved like book reports and reading and writing and just really got into that. So if I had just kept that path, it's funny because in Hawaii, I don't know if I've said this before, in Hawaii, like when you're little, you're your truest self. So if there's a little kid who just loves like building and wood, they're like, okay, you're going to go be a canoe maker. And here it's like, little boy, stop looking out the window and daydreaming. Why are you drawing a picture of the cardinal? We're doing mathematics.
Yeah, he's dreaming of flight, right?
And so we go through all of this stuff. And then if we're lucky, do a bunch of work to get back to who we really were, who we really are. And what I'm doing now? I'm writing now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's just interesting to think about it that way.
Yeah, they just don't have a lot of avenues for male strippers where I live. So
I know.
Teacher kept telling me to put my clothes on. I was like, stop, what are you doing?
It's like a real lack of representation.
You're killing my dreams.
It's like a food desert, but with exposure.
Yeah, exactly. I don't get to hang my meat out as much as I used to, So talking about the title of the podcast, like, Rebel with a Cause, do you feel like since getting sober that you have been able to kind of like redefine, and this is a multi-part question, ready? Do you feel like you've been able to redefine yourself and then get on a path that has helped you to like start to express some of the true directions in your heart? And then if so, what was the necessary like elements that helped you get from, dog days of drugging and drinking to like a path of clarity that helped you, feel more on track in the world, or, you know what I mean? Like, how did that work for you?
It's interesting because you're talking about self-expression, and I was at this like spiritual fair a couple of years ago, and you could get a free psychic reading. And she said to me that I'm the peacemaker of the family. And I was like, no, no, no,
So you
no, no.
punched her in the face.
Yeah. I was like, no, that's funny. I'm like, my sister's down there, so maybe that's who you're thinking of, but I'm the disruptor. Like, I literally ruffle the feathers. I disagree with what things are. I'm the black sheep of bunch. She's like, no, you disrupt things right now in the short term, but the long term is keeping the peace because you're exposing the truth.
Mm.
And that's kind of everything. I mean, that's kind of what my whole book is about. And so I feel like I do kind of shake things up a bit, but with purpose now. So that's why I say rebel with a cause. And how did I get there? I mean, writing was, like you said, with the steps that it took to kind of finally put your blog out into the world. I just wrote so much in early sobriety and like just had to get these things down on paper, and then slowly started sharing them and slowly started caring less and less because I realized I wasn't trying to impress the people that were going to judge me. I was trying to heal the people who needed to hear what I had to say.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it was less about me and more about the message and more about where the message was coming from, which I believe is something more divine than we can even fathom.
Mm-hmm.
And that our way to do that and express that is through words. So yeah, it's interesting how it all happens and how I'm still kind of this rebel disruptor, but in a totally different way.
Yeah, I think I tend to do the same thing. I reflect with different action, right? You know, and it's also it's like less words too, right? You know, even though sometimes publishing the words is part of the action, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But I do, but I also what I really love is being consistent with the words and the actions. So it's not just lip service and not just that kind of stuff. So and moreover too, I really love being able to hold up my actions, right?
Yeah.
And then you could cast a light on just about anything I do today, and there's very rare moments of shame. If there are moments of shame, I am very clear to point them out first. So
Yeah. You take
yeah,
accountability.
exactly. So that's where and then the good team, right? Like I think one of the things that's hard about even doing a topic like this is to not talk about like all the good we've done, quote unquote, right?
Yeah.
And
Did we? Have we? How have we done on that?
so far, I
Yeah.
think it's pretty good. I think one of the things
Okay.
is that because I came from a group of men who who I listened to very closely, by the way, because I needed to not fuck this up anymore, and they would say things like, "Look, it's great that you guys are doing good out there, but try and do good and not tell anybody about it, right?"
Yes.
And then
Yes.
and that was
Exactly.
kind of like these are not unspoken rules, these are spoken rules, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, so I really try to not toot my own horn in that regard, or to go, but some things need to be said. Some things, like, again, talking about the podcast or talking about the things that we do, um, pointing to other people who have done right what you intend to do or what you're currently doing is actually okay too. Giving somebody else credit for what they're doing in the world, I think, is good. um, and so that's kind of the idea behind this stuff. It's like, sometimes I want to sing it from the rooftops, but it would diminish the effort, and it would diminish the intent.
Mm-hmm.
And
And the
yeah,
reward,
yeah,
probably.
because the reward is sometimes the very best reward. Again, I think we're running on some themes here. Is the humility, right, to be
Mm-hmm.
able to like sit and know that you did a good job and you didn't
Mm-hmm.
take credit for it, because that it wasn't necessarily um, all you're doing either, right? It was like there's yeah.
Exactly. And we always, I think, do not always, I try to get away from always and never, but I think most of the time we do a pretty good job of saying, like, this is from some divine source and not coming from Lindsey or Carl.
Yeah, if it was all me, I would have blown it up a long time ago.
Yeah.
Like that's all.
I would have self-sabotaged and
On
screamed
some level,
whatever you were talking
yeah.
about saying in the room of people instead of
Yeah,
observing
and I
it.
think
Yeah.
as we talk about the title, Rebel with the Cause, that is part of the cause, right? And I think one
Yeah.
of the things I don't do is I try not to be heavy-handed with it. I try not to be like, hey, uh, uh, try not to be evangelize a message, quote unquote,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
I think that we're all very different in how we get there, and I think you can even be atheist, agnostic, or whatever, and still pick up on the same tones that we're talking about, and still pick up on very much the same spirituality, or that we're trying
Sure.
to share. So I think there's a little weird part of that where it's like you want to sing the praises, but you don't want to sing them too heavy, right? So you want to let people know that there's
Yeah.
more. I guess I'm trying to say is I'm trying to let people know that there's a side to being the not the baddie or being on the good team that you don't get to sing about, you don't get to write home about, you don't get to nobody's going to give you a ribbon or a letter of recommendation because you did it. The fact is just doing the good deed is the reward. Like that's the whole point. And I think when you're being the baddie, when you've come from that life and when you've come from that point of view, you really want the reward. You really do. You
Oh,
want the recognition.
I want to show everybody how good I am.
Yeah,
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 at the beginning. Yeah.
exactly. And then you find, I think the best part is that if you're doing it and you're actually doing it with the right intent and the right reasons, the reward is, I mean, the good deed is the reward itself, but
Hmm.
you actually feel it as though you got the recognition. It's this
Yeah.
really weird change in turn of being that like is so much more rewarding and valuable than if everybody posted it and liked it on Facebook. I once saw a guy, and this will always get to me. This will always this is where I may start cussing, so you're gonna have to stop me, Lindsay.
All right.
I once
No,
saw a
no.
guy in the program years ago post on Facebook him giving his mom the house. He did it kind of like a reality TV reveal kind of a thing, giving her the keys and thanking his sobriety and all this other shit. See, I'm already starting to cuss, and I just like it. I just felt so. I was revolted by this dude's
Hmm.
expression of what should have been an amends, right? He's
Hmm.
literally taking the amends process and posting it on social and some video and doing this stupid reveal thing. And it was embarrassing. I was embarrassed to actually be in the program being associated with this dude. I immediately unfriended the dude and I'm like, no, thank you. If that's your recovery,
No, thank
I
you.
don't want any part of being anywhere near that shit. You know what I mean? Because it's embarrassing, right? It wasn't, I don't think it, I saw it and I was like, oh, you want recognition for something that you should have done silently and with humility, but you couldn't because your ego didn't allow for that, right? So if you're listening, whoever you are, or if this gets sent to you, shame on you.
Well, and I hope that they've since found, because that's not freedom, right? So
Right?
that's not
Yeah.
having acquired the freedom of doing what we ought to do because we want to do it. So that's the
Yeah,
difference.
exactly. Yeah, so I've seen it done correctly and I've seen it done poorly, and that was the idea. Is like in my mind anyway, right?
Yeah.
And also how it was taught to me to do it, right? So it's like there's certain things you just don't go out screaming from the rooftops because again, you should have been doing it, different to begin with. We don't get rewarded for doing what we should have been doing correct in the first place, right? Like, that's kind of that is its own reward to me. So that's how I view it.
Yeah. And that's kind of the irony of it is we may have started doing things to get the recognition, or the recognition was so, so important to us in the past. And now when we get it, that's not even, for me, that's not the most fulfilling part
Hmm.
of doing something.
So
So
what I hope that people do is I hope that people out listening, if you're new in recovery, if you're new to being in this life, and you hear about all those things about making the amends and whatnots and everything, because your ego is going to pop up and say, hey, you should post this on Facebook or, or something. Right. And then what I would hope to do is that you do the things that I heard and did, which is try doing something good and not telling people about it. Just do that. And then
start there. Yeah.
See how that feels, and see how that feels to really hold on to it and to never tell a soul. See how that feels. Because I'll tell you what, I've done those things and I can sit with so much more assurance, and I just go, oh, this is that's beautiful. Right.
It's so freeing, because then you're not depending on other people's validation.
And you're not doing those things in order to get something in return.
Right.
It's not a transactional relationship bullshit stuff that I used to live in and that I no longer look forward to reigniting in my sobriety.
A form of manipulation.
There you go. Yeah.
A means to an end. Yeah.
Lindsey,
how are we gonna wrap this up? This has been so
we're gonna wrap this up like an 18-year-old going to the prom. We are going to
There it is.
There it is. Sorry, my bad. So,
no, it's okay.
So when I think that's a safe joke to make, isn't it? I'm not even sure.
I think okay. I think we're good.
It's safe joke to make. Get it? Safety.
Yeah, I think it's really just.
Oh, never safe sex joke.
It's a PSA. It's a PSA.
Yeah. There you go.
It's all prom season, dude.
Oh, it is prom season. Well, congratulations,
you were just
all you 18-year-olds out there.
Notifying our younger listeners.
Okay, so time to wrap it up. So Lindsey, what do you say to the new person out there who has just discovered that his horns have been shaved off of his head or her head?
It's okay to be okay. And even though the misery felt really comfortable to me and might feel really comfortable to you, just try a different way just for today.
And I say, if you found yourself on the good team, look for new models to new role models, right? Do some reading, do some looking. Who are some people that you admire that you can emulate as you move forward? Because it was for me, not having a lot of good role models in my life, it was really important that I started to adopt the behaviors and attitudes that I saw in other people that I truly admired. And so that was the one thing I absolutely needed to do. So
that's such a good one.
So Lindsey, thank you for coming on the show. Hopefully I didn't cuss as much this time around.
I was going to say last episode and this episode, I mean, I'm astounded at the transformation. I don't even know how that's possible.
Oh, it's possible. You just got to pray really hard.
No, truly. I mean, in real time experiencing that.
Every day I have woke up, by the way, since then, and I have absolutely been like, God, please just let me talk to people without.
Do you get it all out in the morning? Do you do 146 in the morning? And then is it like a ration?
100 flux before 7 a.m. and I'm good to go. Fuck.
That's one of your reflections.
I mean, I can still say it. I just can't say it. You know what I mean?
No, but really.
No,
truly,
thank you. Thank you for helping me check it before I wreck it. And really, thank you for coming on the podcast and providing much more depth and weight I think that was needed today. So other than that, what do you say to the kind, loving, loquacious people? What is loquacious a word?
I say wrap it up. No, I say trust your truth.
I say stay active, stay sober. See ya.
Soberpod.com. Yeah. It was a sight to see him. Breakfast with Sprite and Seagrams. Wrestling with my vices, exercising my demons. My blessings were blocked, so I never got the message. I'm stressing, I'm only 12 steps from an exit. Regret it, because my imperfections were perfected. I ain't run from it, I accept it and rep it. It's a badge to me, good stories come from a tragedy. And when you survive, the glory will come in Act 3. The wait's over, 366 days sober. Morning affirmations that can start the day for you. Use my favorite bookmark for a placeholder. Finish when the day's over, okay? Okay. Yeah, sober pod, keep it authentic, no facades. If it's real, then you know it's ours. Welcome.